الله 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 ما لنا مولى سوى الله. الله 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 ما لنا مولى سوى الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات نعيم ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرر موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون ولحم طير مما يشتهون. صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah, all praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, most merciful. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to be here. Alhamdulillah, we're starting Surah Al-Waqiah today, which is the 56th surah of the Quran. Al-Waqiah means the event. So before we begin, two things. First, I'm going to give you the context of the surah, the reason of its revelation. I'll share a riwayah in regards to that. But before I do that, we'll give you some inspiration. We haven't done that in a while. We're coming here, inshallah. Motivate ourselves. I was looking at a quote by Hazrat Mufti Shafi' rahmatullah alayhi, the Imam, or the Mufti Azam of Pakistan. And this is something that we hear the ulama mention as the reality. And that is that, when we say we're going to finish the Quran, there's no such thing as finishing the Quran. We actually the way to be said is we're going to finish ourselves in the Quran. We're not going to finish the Quran. We're going to finish ourselves in the Quran. That is the approach. The reason is, it's a logical reason. Because the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah himself is endless, and his speech is also, the wisdom of his speech is also endless. So we've heard the pious say, right? We want to finish ourselves with the Quran. Does that make sense? Amazing. Sometimes we think of Islam like, okay, I'll take that course, I'll do this, I'll finish that. Yeah, food finishes, classes finishes, other things, courses finish, classes finish, but the Quran doesn't finish. We finish ourselves in the Quran. Good point, motivation. All right. And I have one more thing. That's a quote of the ulama. One hadith to share, the famous hadith. خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. So we have to keep in mind, like right now as we're sitting here, understand, trying to learn the Quran and teach the Quran, we're the best of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we can say Alhamdulillah for that. Anytime you're engaged with the Quran and learning or teaching, at that moment you're the best of the Ummah, because you're doing the best activity of the Ummah. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finish us in the Quran and with the hikmah and the wisdoms of the Quran. Okay, this surah, this is a Makki surah, and this was from the early surahs. And the context of the surah, and one of the fadilat, the virtues of the surah, is that if this is recited every night, Surah Al-Waqiah, it relieves one of poverty. You will not face faqr, poverty in your life. Right? And nowadays we live in such a materialistic society. It's all about more wealth, and we're so materialistically connected, and that. So this surah should be so relevant for all of us. And then there's and to elaborate this further, if you look in Ma'arif al-Quran, right, that's a famous tafsir book in English language. Hazrat Mufti Shafi Sahib rahmatullahi alayh, he brings a big narration, a dialogue between Hazrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala and Hazrat Usman radiallahu ta'ala in regards to this surah. Okay, so listen to this dialogue. Now look at who is this dialogue between. Obviously this is before we're starting. This is just the context. This dialogue is between Hazrat Usman radiallahu ta'ala in his khilafat. Okay, and Hazrat Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Who's Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala? From the Sahaba, he's one of the scholar Sahabi. Right? Most of the Hanafi madhab is based off of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala. So he goes, visits him in his illness, in a severe illness of his. And Usman radiallahu ta'ala asks him, coming for his iyad, two great people, right? And he asks him, what happened? What's the problem? Do you know the story already? A little bit vaguely? No? Okay. He asks him, well, what's the issue? Okay. And he said sins. What does he say? Look at the response to that. This is Sahaba Kiram, right? Always amazing. Very, very Iman is what level. When your Iman is at that level, your reality is very different. He said sins. Of course, somebody would respond, I have this illness. He said, sins are my problem. Right? Look at it. Look how they're looking at things. That was Maradul Maut. He was in Maradul Maut. When asked, what's the problem? He said, my sins are the problem. Number two, he asked him, Ma tashtahi, what do you want? Can I do something for you? He said, I'm the Khalifa of the Muslim world, and a third Khalifa. Can you imagine how much world he had underneath him? What do you want? He said, Rahmatu Rabbi, I want the mercy of my Lord. What do you have? I have sins. What do you want? I want the mercy of my Lord. And number three, then he asked them, okay, can I get you some medicine? Can I get you some dawa? And I get the best doctors to look at your situation. He said, At-tabibu amrazani, that the doctor has made me sick. He's referring to doctors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, can I get you some medicine? And then, can I get you the best doctor here, that he can start looking at treatments for you? He said, the doctor has made me sick. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he asked him, what about money? Since I'm the Khalifa of the Muslim world, you are an important, obviously Sahabi is important, and you're from the scholars of the Sahabis. Money? Maybe I'll give you some financial help from the government. He said, La hajata fi, I have no need in money. And the second thing he asked me, the last thing, he said, you're leaving behind some daughters. Maybe after you pass away, I should leave some type of a salary for them, fixed. So you don't have to worry, at least now you shouldn't be worried about your kids at this point. He said, no, you don't need to worry about my daughters, because I've taught them Surah Al-Waqiah, and I've heard from my Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we'll recite this every night. There'll be no poverty, and they know Surah Al-Waqiah, so that's not an issue. So this story is mentioned, this dialogue between the two Sahabis, which is telling of a lot of things. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and many of the mashayikh, they have Surah Al-Waqiah in their wazifa, right? It's part of their habitual reading. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you an tawfiq from amongst the important surahs that we put this in our practice. Now moving on. So now we'll begin the surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. When the imminent event will take place. Like the event that's going to happen, take place. Like that which is going to happen is going to take place. You can translate it, obviously this is referring to Day of Judgment. So this reference is to Day of Judgment, but you can translate it when the imminent will happen. Or you can translate it as a general. لَيْسَ لِوَقَعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةٌ, the second ayah. There will be no one to deny its occurrence. Like there's nothing odd about it. Meaning that it's such a reality, Day of Judgment. It's like 110%. Other realities that we have around us, the fact that we're going to get home after this, understand? Nothing is certain, like the way Maut is certain, and the way Yawm al-Qiyamah is certain. Yawm al-Qiyamah is so certain, it's like 110%. That's also a meaning of Laysa liwaqa'atiha kadhiba. Like this is the highest truth of that of that event happening. Then another meaning of Laysa liwaqa'atiha kadhiba, no one can deny it. You know how in the world now we can have an atheist, an agnostic, someone who's just questioning everything, questioning the creator on that day, or you have a Muslim but he has shak, doubts. Understand? A Muslim who has lots of doubts, he has a little bit of doubts, or a Muslim who just has like one doubt. Doubts about things in life. Like it was then on that day, everybody in that there'll be no doubts left about where we are, what's happening. The most important day has come forth. Then the third, so these are obviously descriptions of Judgment Day. A day that puts people down and puts people up. A day, some people will be abased, and some people will be exalted. The world will be divided, some people low, some people high. When the earth will be shook, a great shaking, the whole earth. When we experience earthquakes and their magnitude in certain areas, but now the whole earth shook. So think of that day. When? Remember when the earth will be shaken? And the mountains will crumble into bits. Shaken, and then the mountains will crumble into bits. فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا, and they'll become dust scattered in the air. So because the hardest inanimate object we think of, that we perceive, is the mountains. Even when the earth was created, it was shaking. The mountains had to be put in like pegs to hold it in place. So imagine, just think of it, the hardest surface, and then turning into not just pieces, like when we think of something being broken, you think of big pieces. You don't think of small, because the big stuff is supposed to have big pieces, not small pieces. And then the word used here, mumbatha, if you go into the Arabic aspect of it, it's actually, dharra, like an atom. It's actually smaller than that, like a little speck, what you call a speck, or thing that flies in the air. That's the expression here. With this word usage here, فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا, it becomes flying debris or particles. And elsewhere it's mentioned فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مَنْثُورًا. So the most hardest object of life. So now you can imagine the rest. If the hardest object, that's going to happen to it, imagine what's the reality of this dunya. وَكُنْتُمْ, and this earth shaking is of the whole earth, not like a part of the earth, it's the whole earth. Then وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا, you that day will be in 3 groups. All of humanity in 3 groups. Okay. Ashabul Maymana, Ashabul Mash'ama, and As-Sabiqun. People of the right, left, people of the right, people of the left, and foremost. And today's dars, we're just going to speak about the foremost, the gifts of the foremost. May Allah SWT make us of the foremost. I'll just tell you quickly. The right are going to be the Muslims who have wrong, who have things, accounts to give. So their book will be given in their right hand in front of them. The Ashabul Yameen are the people who have failed the test of the life of the earth, and they'll be given in the left hand on the back. And the foremost, they're the foremost, age age. And who is this category? A little description will be given, but I think just from the name, foremost, age age. That means that also, and this is mentioned elsewhere, when the Muhajir was Sabiqun al-awwaluna min Muhajirin. It's one of the qualities that in deen we should be ahead. People in ahead, they'll be Sabiqun. Okay, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that tawfiq. So like, when you're ahead in the deen here in the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put you ahead. Inshallah. So Allah will give us, this is just something to strive for, to be ahead. And also we see the reality of that. People we have seen, people around ulama and mashayikh, people who aage aage the. What happened to the people who were aage aage? And what happened to the people who were piche piche? We all know the reality of people who were aage aage the. What happened? They became very, very successful. They learned a lot from those mashayikh and those ulama. And jo log piche piche, they did it. They were piche piche. So it's similar like here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, make an effort in this regard to get ahead in regards to deen. So the all humanity in 3 groups. So ashabul maymanati ma ashabul maymana. So people of the right, what So for the people of the right, how lucky are the people of the right? Ma ashabul maymana. Washabul mash'ama, and the people of the left, how wretched are the people of the left? Right, how lucky they got the book in the right hand, alhamdulillah. And people of the left, and the wasabiqun as-sabiqun, and the foremost are the foremost. So that's an amazing way of expressing it. That even if you have iman on your path, still look how lucky you are. At least you got it in front. But then if you're one of the ahead people, then you're one of the ahead people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. So as-sabiqun as-sabiqun, now the description starts of as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. Okay, in the ayat 11, أولئك المقربون. These are the close ones. These ones are people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, في جنات النعيم, they will be in gardens of bliss, gardens filled with gifts. ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين. Many are from the earlier generations and little are from the latter. The many Mufassirin give many meaning. What does it mean that, because we're just talking about this category, the most winning category, the ones who are ahead, who are at the ahead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those. It says many were from the earlier and less. So this has multiple meaning. One way you can look at it is if you look at all the humanity, and you can look at the first, we had all the prophets who came up to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they were ahead because of the prophets. Over here, but we have Sahaba Qu'ran, but they're not like the prophets. So there are many. So meaning prophets. When it says many before, meaning prophets were there before, and little afterwards. Or you could take it in other words, just look at our ummah, don't look at the whole life on earth, that many from the previous first are golden generations of Islam, Sahaba Ikram, Tabi'een, look how many greats were there. But even at the end, we'll always have greats, people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and وَقَلِيلٌ مِنَ الْآخِرِينَ, and little from the latter people. They'll always have, what hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, there'll always be a group who's upon the truth. That there'll never come a time that the ummah is, also the ummah will never go astray as a collective. Like ijma is actually one of our dalils, second, third dalil, even before qiyas. Qiyas comes after, ijma is the first dalil. So the whole consensus of the Muslim community and the whole ummah doesn't go. And nowadays, may Allah protect us, people who go away from the collective of what was the whole ummah is upon. It's a huge sin to go away from the ijma of the ummah. Right? Allah mentions in the Quran, whoever goes away from the collective of the ummah, let him go wherever he's going, and he'll get to Jannah. This is the path of Jannah. Allahumma hafazna min. So, what's the first hadith? Is that the haqq jamaat will always remain. So the Sahaba Ikram Tabi'een, they were a lot. Thulla means kathir. Thullatum min al-awwaleen. Pehle bahut the. Wa qalilum akhirin. Akhir mein, they'll be less, but they'll still be there. So the argument that in the world, some people say like this, koi nek nahi hai. No one's pious. Sab aise hi hai. People say, make these comments, not right. Because then some of the verses of the Quran don't go right, where it says, have taqwa of Allah by being with the righteous. And then for one to think that no, that sab aise hi hai, it wouldn't be right. It's in whoever is superior, plus that's arrogance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always keeps, and the haqq jamaat will always be there. It might be small in number, but there will be somebody who's steadfast upon the deen. And they'll always be till the end times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of that. And I have a just general note here, because we touched on this kind of a topic about, somebody being on the straight path always. The scholars have said that when the Prophet ﷺ came into the world, he did this 4 words. Takmeel din, tamkeen din, tadween din, and tathhir din. Takmeel din, completion of the religion. So Prophet ﷺ, deen was complete. We're not going to say nothing wasn't complete. It was done. The whole religion came down, finished. Then what is the Sahaba Ikram's contribution to everything? Tamkeen din. They gave it ground. Tamkeen, they gave it like makan. Actually, even if you look at the Muslim countries that we have today, the Muslims boast of how many countries do we have? Like 20 or plus, right? Who consider themselves Muslim countries. Who did all that? Sahaba Ikram. Yeah, that's tamkeen din. Can you imagine if they didn't do that? Like, were we about to do that now? Get some more countries for ourselves. Allah protect our countries. Allah make them stronger, inshallah. But who did that tamkeen? Who took that? Who did that vast Islam has a huge footing on the earth, like literal footing on the earth. Who rooted it? The Sahaba Ikram. Then when Imam Abu Hanifa, still the golden generation, Tabi'een, they came tadween din. They've organized it in chapters. They've kind of put it like, so nobody can self-interpret, and this all happened in that nobody can self-interpret. It's just locked, like baked as a cake. So you can't even like possibility have like a possible opinion. Like it's just all there. You can't be like a confused man. We can't be living in the 3rd century of Islam, 4th century, and just be confused, like we don't understand the ibadah or anything. We can just closed it. That's we organize it. And then they say the 4th process is what has happened in today's era with the ulama of Deoband. They've had the great privilege and that they are the scholars who have done tathhir din. Tathhir din means cleaning. So the religion was already perfect, but it has become so far and diluted, and the world has become with so much fitna and problematic. What are the ulama of Deoband doing? Because the religion was already tamkeen, it was already takmeel, complete. And then it was already tamkeen, it already took place. Tadween is already organized and like perfected. What's left now? What are the ulama, that haq jama group that we're talking about? What do they do? Tathhir. That means that the dust that is on top of the deen that people can't see, they're just taking the dust off. That's it. And so you look, this beautiful deen, just take it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making us from connected to the ulama of Deoband. We should be very, very proud of that. This is our heritage. This is our legacy. These are our akabir. We can't be shy off of that. Like, well, you're not proud. So we can't be that, be in a state where we're not proud of our akabir. Who could be that, someone who says, oh, like your own abawaj dad, you like ignore them. What kind of person is that, right? People who don't like that kind of a person in society, who disassociates himself from his dad and forefathers. And in our spiritual forefathers who has passed down the deen to us, with tathhir deen, pure deen. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable everyone to understand importance of ijma', importance of scholarship, how beautifully it's preserved. Okay. So moving on. Ala sururin mawduna. Now continuing with the gifts of so it mentioned sabiqun, right? People who are foremost. Now the rest of the dars will just give some of the gifts of Jannah that they're gonna have. Okay, Allah make us of them. Ala sururin mawduna, on high seats with they'll be sitting on thrones woven with gold. So even the seating is gonna have gold. So complete luxury and gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muttaki'ina, they'll be leaning alayha, mutaqabilin, and facing one another. So leaning, because when you just sit, you get tired, but if you're leaning so relaxed, now you can sit in that position for a very long time. And also facing one another is like the best position. If everybody's properly facing one another, you have more enjoyment. It's that if everybody's not properly facing, then there's less enjoyment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the gift of being together and the high seats and the luxury and the company of one another as a gift for the people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are of the foremost. Muttaqina alayha mutaqabilin. So the next verse, يَطُوفُ عَلَيْهِمْ وِلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ. Immortal boys will rotate around them. So there'll be children there, just there for the pleasure and the service of the people of Jannah. Because one thing you don't realize, the ni'mas that are around us, even when you have children, they move fast to do things. It's very pleasurable to just ask a child, can you grab that for me? And how does he quickly go about to go get something? Like when one of us gets up, right? It's like a task. It's like a task. But when you have like little kid, it's so pleasurable because they're just moving all the time. They say, oh, grab that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create this creation, yatuf wildan, it is called, and they'll always remain children. Wildan mukhalladun. Like I wrote here, forever boys, forever kids. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have this creation called the forever kids. The ulama are in the ikhtilaf whether these forever kids are they from the human or are they on the earth. Some say they are some of the small children of the earth. And some say they're a special creation of Jannah, the forever kids. They're just there because a human being takes pleasure off of kids being around them. So even that, can you imagine what a fine detail that is? Like if we don't have these verses, we probably don't even reflect upon it, that kids are such a blessing like that. But if you if you ever have a gathering, or if you see like adults and you see kids, and then especially if they're behaving so well, then you see that you see that's a ni'mah. We don't see it like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that there too, that we're going to give you that aspect. They're going to be the forever kids. But they're just for the khidmah and as part of the gifts of Jannah. بِأَكْوَابٍ وَأَبَارِيقَ وَكَأْسٍ مِّن مَّعِينٍ, with bowls and jugs and a goblet of pure wine. So they're going to have these drinks and jugs, and even if you go into more of these words, you find a description of what kind of instruments, utensils of Jannah mentioned here. And it mentions wine, and then when it mentions wine, then it clarifies لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون. It'll be such that neither gives you a headache nor they're intoxicates. So wine, rather than people who drink wine, Allahumma hafazna, but people who drink wine, they get wine is everything for them. Although it gives them a headache, but they're still gonna have it. Because they like the high of it, but Allah is going to give them a headache afterwards. So it's saying that but the drinks of paradise will be all pure drinks. But it'll just be called wine, it'll be a complete different nature, and it won't give you headaches. Like you'll have the good feel from it, but it'll give you pleasure, but it will be no headaches. And the other one, intoxication. People who get intoxicated, what do people do when they're intoxicated? Right? There's fight, and then people, they still drink. They still think it's so pleasurable. Although they will curse at one another, they will harm one another, all that. But then the pleasure. How's that pleasure when it leads to the health, the headache, and also the intoxication? So that one in wine of Jannah is mentioned. It is not going to give you a headache and nor intoxication. So the things that Allah Subhanahu makes haram, when we abstain from them, that's why Allah Subhanahu points that out, that when you're staying away from things that we've told you is haram, we have gifts in store for you as a replacement, as an alternative, and then wafakihatin, and then you can also have fruits, mimma yatakhayyarun, whichever one you like, of whatever you choose, and with fruits that they choose, all types of fruits, and even one fruit is going to have various different flavors of it, each one as you like. And then the last ayah for today's dars, وَلَحْمِ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ, and the flesh of birds that they desire. So meat. How much do humans love meat? And then you don't cook meat for a day, what do the kids start saying? Like, up to dal bahut ho chuka. And keep having lobia, right? Everyone's gonna have an issue with that. We love meat. And then it mentions bird meat, because it is said that bird meat is the best. Did you know that? Huh? Chicken is bird. People enjoy chicken. Yeah. So I don't know. I just, as I was doing this tafseer of this, I realized that. I was like, why is it lahmi tayr? Doesn't mean that you're not going to have lahmi like some other animals, that human beings, that it's not limiting it to that. But it just brought the best one forth. It just goes lahmi tayr. Bird, which is the best meat, and from whatever you like. And in that you have different kinds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taking all the possible, even some of the ni'mas that we don't see as ni'mah, pointing them out and making like a scene of paradise for us, saying that all this will be granted to you for your hard work in this world as a jaza. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to make efforts in this world of taqwa and everything that's asked of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of this category, as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. Allah make our children of this category. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all the community of this category, sabiqun as-sabiqun. Right? Why should we settle for this? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is King of all kings, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant our parents, our loved ones who have passed from this world, all the Muslims who have passed, may Allah make them as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. All the people who are present, Allah make them as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. All the people who are to come, Allah will make them as-sabiqun as-sabiqun. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi bil alamin. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim.